This Once Human video is all about the best base for territory purification. If you don't know what that is, it's the weekly defend the resonator from the attackers for Starcrom thing. Now, this base build works anywhere. There's no gimmicks, so no water bases, no cliff bases, no choke point, funneling of mobs. This is super cheap and quick and easy to build. You can do this as soon as you hit week 2 or phase 2. You do not need mimetic specializations, but I will cover those if you really want to min-max it anyway. This does not rely on bio-missiles or cannon turrets. This is completely AFKable for acid farming. You don't need deviant spam, and you can mostly AFK if you dump 40 level 3s into this. But before I get into the build, let me explain to you how this base works and why it works. So, the way this base works is you're going to want to either build this on an alt base or use this as a blueprint for the one time that you do the Cortex mission. It really depends on what you want to do, but I highly recommend that you build this on an alt, and I highly recommend that you have a secondary device, because if you want to share the progress with your main, both characters will need to be logged in. So maybe have one of your friends who doesn't care about building bases build this. If you have friends, if you don't have an alternate device, you're going to have to save this as a blueprint and then use the blueprint to swap between your normal base and your defense base, which is pretty simple and easy once you have it set up. But here's how and why this base works. So, this is an alts base, and because this base is on a small plot, that's very important that you never expand your territory and keep it as small as possible. What this will do is this will spawn the mobs on 3 of the 4 corners of the base. It's completely random which 3 of the 4 corners mobs will spawn at, but you have 360-degree coverage, which I'm also going to talk about here. So, if we look at basically the border here, they can spawn in this corner, and they can spawn, sometimes they'll spawn on top of the base, sometimes they'll spawn like below it, and they'll just stand there. Or they'll spawn on this corner, or this corner, or this corner. They're not gonna spawn on the flat parts of your border, only on the corners. And so, the way the AI works is the melee mobs who can climb up on your base, and I recommend that you don't have your base too high up, because if your walls are too high up, the mobs will just kind of stand there, and that can work to your benefit, but sometimes the turrets can't exactly shoot down. So, let's talk about the turrets. The turrets are outward facing, so that when mobs do spawn on the corners, they will all turn 180 degrees and shoot at the targets. However, also, melee mobs that spawn and manage to climb up onto the base will run directly to the center and attack this pillar. And this pillar is also, they might attack the your main little base territory terminal here, which is a good thing, because this thing is highly armored and has more health than anything else. But essentially what happens is these turrets will be able to turn 360 degrees due to 2 things. We have these cameras here. These cameras do not take, and these are called dynamic sensors. These cameras do not take any power, but you still need to connect them to your power grid. And also, these things here, these are called gravitational grip 3s. What these will do is freeze the melees in place for just a little bit, but it also acts as a detector, and it will make the turrets spin around and mow down all the melee mobs. And because there's no walls in the way, there is some pillars, but because there's no walls in the way, every single one of these turrets, and there are 17 turrets, these are level 3 turrets. Now, because I wanted to make this power grid friendly for low spec, I do have one level 2 turret here. So this only requires 100 total base power, which anyone can do without mimetics or deep specialization. The turrets will all spin around to the center and kill the melee mobs. No problem, right? Next up, you have flying mobs, and I'm going to get to why the base looks like this in just a bit. Next up, you have flying mobs, little ones and big ones, that will spawn outside the base. Now, for those that don't know, these flying mobs and ranged attack mobs, all they do is attack directly wherever your resonator is. So let me show you where that's at so I can explain. We have a random sandbag here, and if I climb up on this sandbag, there is a small hole up here, which, come on, let's climb up. And this entire area is heavily honeycombed, right? With half walls, regular walls, and even a doors and a doorway. So here in the very center of the entire honeycomb is our resonator. So all the ranged mobs, they're going to be trying to attack this thing. They're not going to try to fly up into the base to attack it. And the melee mobs, well, melee mobs can't climb, so they're stuck on the ground attacking the pillar. But there's so many pillars supporting this that if somehow you turned off all your turrets and they destroyed this pillar, they have to destroy all these other pillars to crumble the base, which is never going to happen. And your turrets will never go offline because our power grid is protected. But anyway, you're flying in rage mobs, like pretend the little Buzzy Bee here is a flying ranged mob. It will just hover there and attack the walls, trying to chip away at the honeycomb to get to the center where the resonator is. The big mobs that spawn, the big ground mobs, they're so big, they can't get under this. They can't run up under here and attack the pillar. So what their AI does is they stay outside of your base and lob bombs at range, hitting the top parts of your base, which is all honeycombed, to try to get to the center where your resonator is. So while the mobs are doing that, your flying mobs, the big flying mobs, and the big melee mobs are all stuck outside the base, all of your machine guns are just killing everything. These cameras, even though a camera isn't exactly facing this direction, it can still see over here, because the cameras can swivel around, though there is no animation for that. What happens is, when there's a big fat, boss enemy out here just chilling and lobbing stuff at your walls, every single turret will focus on them and mow them down. You can completely AFK pretty much everything. If you cram 40 of your cortexes, which is these Eclipse cortexes, you can do 40 of these a week, and if you cram all 40, you can solo this with any build, even trash garbage builds, even with a melee build if you want, because the way the enemies work is they try to kill your cortex, right? Now, some melee mobs will slap your turrets, like especially if they're stuck on the ground and they can't get up, they will try to either attack the wall or the turret. They will prioritize the turret first, so they may slap your turret right around in that direction. Now, this one's not hurt. So the only repairs you actually ever really need to do are your turrets, because we have a few ways to repair the base automatically. So for those unaware, this is a paper doll. You only need one of these. Now, I put 3 in the base, but you only need one. And during territory defense, they won't repair your turrets, but they will repair all of your foundations, walls, pillars, and stuff like that, which will hardly take any damage at all. I did 40 back-to-back-to-back missions without any manual repairs, and this pillar lost about 300 HP, and it has 3,600. And I'll get into that in a bit, why it has so much. It's the turrets that took a little bit of damage, and I haven't repaired them ever, and I'm on week, I believe, 4 or 3, I'm not sure. So this turret took, not even 150 damage. This turret took maybe 45 damage, 20 to 100, I don't know, I'm not doing math. But you get the idea. These turrets took a little bit of chip damage from the mobs, and that's basically it. And again, the turrets do almost all of the work, and if you want, you can just shoot at whatever is hovering around to speed things up. But it's completely and utterly AFKable. So let me talk about what this stuff is around this. If you haven't played Rust or any kind of PvP base building game, this is called honeycombing, and it's a little interesting how it works. So the reason there are gaps in the middle is because there are some enemies that spawn whose ranged attack is a splash damage hit. But because there is a gap between these honeycombs and this honeycomb, this inner honeycomb will never get any of the splash damage until this entire honeycomb is destroyed. And that is something that simply will not ever happen. So what is going on here? Let me show you the base and how it's constructed. Real quick, let's just go over how to build the base. So I'm gonna go over the materials cost here, and the materials cost is going to vary depending on how big you make this. But just as just kind of a blueprint, this is what it looks like, and that's the honeycombs. As you can see, it populate in, and if I close and reopen this, it should do this again. Look at the honeycombing. That is basically what it looks like. It's all triangles and walls and ceilings. At least 2 layers on both your X and Y axis. That's your horizontal and your vertical, or Z. Z is vertical, right? Anyway, let's go over the materials cost here. So materials, you're going to need sintered brick, under 2,000, very easy to get. Under 2,000 logs, under 114 steel ingots, And again, you don't have to make this from marble. You don't have to make this with bricks or concrete or stone. You could actually make this base out of wood, and it would survive just fine. But I'm a min-maxer. We've got under 100 glass, under 100 refined parts, under like 30 plastic. Now, 279 electronic parts. That might cost you a little bit. That's the turrets. 12 fuses. That's your power banks. I'm using the most basic of basic, standard. We can go to overview and facilities and structures, power generators. I'm just using solar generators. Now, I do have the perk to get 100 or 25 watts per generator. I only need 4. So you might have to upgrade your generators, but on week 2, you'll have access to that. You need 100 watts of power. Get it however you can. I'm using the basic ones because that's just how my character rolled out. Under 100 metal scraps, under 100 gravel, 6 plastic. Now, you're going to need a lot of... You're going to need 200 steel rifle bullets for that level 2 turret and 3,000 tungsten rifle ammo for that level 3 turret. Adhesive, you're going to need a bunch of that, at least 150. You're going to need tungsten for the level 3 turrets. Now, that's not too hard. If you've done your weekly acid farms, you should be able to easily afford this. Tungsten is not hard to get. You can also just run dungeons and disassemble guns, and you get tungsten that way. 200 special parts. This may take you about an hour, doing a few silos and a few, just loot missions. That's it. And then 75 automatic parts, really, really easy stuff to build, and you don't even have to build it this big or immaculate. Like, I would say if I rebuilt this cheaply, I don't even need this outer honeycomb, because the enemy mobs don't even dent it. They barely dent it at all. So how do you build this? Let's go over how to build it now. So, the entire foundation is marble tri-foundations. All you do, this is the very center of the base right here, is you just build a circle of triangles to start. And then all you do from that circle is build triangles on the outer layer, and you just keep doing that until you hit your build border. And then from the build border, again, you just spam triangles, getting it as close to the border as possible. Now, I would have slightly bigger foundations on this side, but because of my base placement, there's a big drop-off here, which is not really the best. But you can see I'm still hitting the border anyway, like there and stuff. So you want to build on flat land if you can, but because the friend I'm playing with, he built over here, I just wanted to, try this out. And don't ignore this building. You don't need other friends or allies or alt accounts with turrets facing inward. This is overkill. You only need this one base and no others to assist. So once you've built the foundation, in the very center, you're going to put your territory terminal. This is for easy repair if you want. And a stone column. Stone column, you can also use the reinforced concrete column for 3,200. But because I have a perk, and I'll talk about that later in the video. So stone, for me, has more durability. Whatever has the most durability, you might use reinforced concrete column. That's fine. And from this stone column, you're going to do the same thing up top. You're going to build a circle of triangle ceilings. These are stone tri-ceilings. So you're going to build one full circle of ceilings, and then you're going to build, triangles on the outer rim of that as much as you can. Once the game stops allowing you to build triangle ceilings, that's when you're going to build an outer layer of columns, which the game, you don't have to put these precisely. The game will space them out for you automatically. So once you've built that layer, you also build triangles, around that. And then you'll build one column on basically the flat part of each of the bases, and then you just build triangles kind of inward for your honeycomb. Now, what about the base access here? So that is, here's your first column, and then your second column, and somewhere on your second column, you're going to leave your honeycomb open. This is a, what is this? This is a stone inverted left wall. You can use the right one, it doesn't matter. But from here, you're just going to leave the honeycomb at half walls. And once you've kind of spiraled your way into the somewhat center of the base, you'll build a, what is this called? This is called a stone door frame. And then you'll build a painted door. The door is just extra HP. You don't even need the door, really, honestly. And inside, you'll build your foundation, your foundry thingy here. I forget what it's called. The resonator. And then I just have another door, and man, is it dark in here. And these are full walls. These aren't half walls with honeycomb. This is completely pitch black to me. I don't know why my graphics render it that way. It's just weird. But let's shut the door so the honeycomb is complete. And that's your inner honeycomb. So next up is the top part. So then you're going to climb up on top of your honeycomb, and it's a little bit hard to see, but I do have a tall base here where I can show you exactly what's going on. But you can see here, there is one more honeycomb on the top. You don't need to extend it out all the way unless you really want to. There's no point. And inside this honeycomb, I have a paper doll, and I also have the power generators. You can see all the wires are kind of curving up into here. That is on the second layer. The second layer doesn't really get attacked, except for one boss enemy that lobs a bomb, and it's going to hit the outer layer of the honeycomb, no problem. And was that a shooting star? I just saw something fly in the sky, like fall down quickly. What the hell was that? I don't know. I've never seen that in the sky. Anyway, I don't really look up at the sky much, but interesting, right? So, inside there, that's where the power banks are protected, and there's the paper doll just kind of chilling up there. I have 3 paper dolls. You only need 1. These guys will repair your structures in between combat, and once the encounter is over, they'll repair everything except your turrets. And then in the center, like I said, I have gravitational grip 3. I also have the dynamic sensors. You don't have to hook up the gravitational grips to power. Now, if you want 3 more turrets, you could do that, and then you would just need more cameras, but I like the gravitational grips because they freeze the melee mobs in place, buying you more time so your pillar doesn't take as much damage. And then you just put your level 3 turrets and 1 level 2 turret on the outer ring here. And that's the build. It's super easy and simple. So this is what the build looks like from the aerial view here, and we'll just drop down. And you can just kind of see in the center is where I keep everything. It's a little hard to see. But everything is just triangle ceilings, triangle walls connecting the 3 triangles. This is called honeycombing. It makes the enemies have to break through all your defense. You can see here in the middle, this is where I have the paper doll. I can go and just destroy that and drop down. So here's the paper dolls, and they probably have a lot of materials, and the 4 generators. Now, the solar generators do not need to be touching the sun. I know people think that they need to be outdoors. That makes them vulnerable. If enemies somehow break your solar generator, then that would be bad. And yes, I'm aware that I should probably honeycomb right above the generator here, but there's no need. Let's just go ahead and replace that ceiling with the stone, not the small one, but the stone tri-ceiling. And go ahead, attach back in there. Why is it red? There we go. Okay, so, but yeah, that's the innards of the base. It's a real simple and foolproof design. You don't need to cheese mobs by building in the water. You can build this anywhere. It's super easy and simple. The only stipulation is that you need to have the smaller, you don't need the territory expansion. If you expand your territory, this base loses so much effectiveness, because it spaces the turrets out too much, the mobs spawn too far away, giving them an advantage. But when you have it on a smaller territory, they spawn in the corners. They're forced to spawn in the corners, literally on your base, and they get instantly mowed down, and there's not really much room for them to run around and be tactical and stuff. And, yeah, so for those that don't know, like, this is an expanded territory base, alright? So this right here, let me just kind of fly in the sky. This is what a expanded territory base looks like. And if you do a defense mission on an expanded territory, they spawn in 3 of the 4 corners, which you don't want to do. But you can see this base is much, much tinier and compact, and they still spawn in the corners, and they're spawning all within range of your turrets, and it just makes things super simple and easy. So that's the base. And you do not need good gear for this at all. You don't need a specialized build. You don't need to, you know, build a specialized character around the base defense. The turrets do all the work. You could just run up and melee the bosses if you want. And you could even AFK 40 level 3 cortexes, but your base is going to take heavy hits from the 2 or 3 bosses that spawn. So you want to really just focus down the bosses and focus down the melees, so they're not palling around in the middle of your base for too long. But if you really, really want to build, I would just say run a Frost Vortex build if you're one of those min-maxers, right? So Frost Vortex build, pretty simple stuff. If you don't know what Frost Vortex is, it's just the little freezy attack that you do here. So you can see here, I'm pumping about, what is that, 60,000 DPS into this target dummy here. And yeah, pretty simple stuff. And it just makes a big snowy, frosty AoE. This target dummy I wasn't even shooting at took around 30,000 DPS. So, again, that would be the best build if you want to min-max for this kind of activity. Alright, finally, let's talk about the mimetics that help. You don't need these at all. They're completely unnecessary. But if you want to min-max, whoever is building the base needs to have the mimetics, not the person who owns the plot, by the way. So, for instance, my Swole Benji character here is the one that owns the mimetics, so I'm going to show you that now. If you don't know what mimetics are, you go up here, and it's the mimetic specialization. So, the two of them that are good, like, you don't need red plasma, you don't need Gatling cannons. What you want is reinforced structures, healing, defense. So, when your territory exits combat, the durability of structures is restored to 80%. I just hit my microphone, I'm sorry. I've personally never ever had any of my buildings reduced below 80%. Never. Alright, so this one, not needed, but it's just there if they make it harder with a future patch, or when we get out of novice mode and play pro mode, maybe these defense missions will be harder, and these might be required. I don't know the future, okay guys? And then the next one is intense defense. So what this does is this gives you 100% bonus durability on stone structures, and it also gives you a higher maximum number of structures that you can build. This base is using 441 out of 700 structures. So the plus 100, not necessary. Now, if you use concrete, it's 3,200 HP. So stone is only beating this by 400 HP on the columns, on the walls, on your foundations. It's not necessary. It's not needed. But hey, if you want 400 more bonus health, then you or your alt or whoever is building this can totally do that. It's up to you, but there again, right now we're playing on novice. For every server is a novice server, so it's easy. You can do this with wood structures. You don't need to go that far to go full concrete if you don't want to. And yeah, there you go. All right, so I know what you're wanting because I watch YouTube videos myself. I know exactly what you want to see. You want to see a 40 cortexes put in here and how the base operates, and I would be happy to show you that. However, at the filming of this video, I have to wait for my friend to log in, and he hasn't been on in 4 to 6 days. So I'm waiting for him to get on, and we're going to do it for the week. Now, if you want to see, I'm going to make a whole separate video for you guys, if I remember. I have to remember to do this, by the way. I'm going to make an unlisted video for you to watch. If you want to see this base in action, I will pin it to the comments whenever I do that. And so I'm probably not going to publish this video for a few days after I finish filming this. And so if you want to see this base in action, please click the unlisted video. No, this is not some YouTuber trick to make more money or get more clicks or anything. This is simply, I've got to wait for my friend to log in, because if I blow my cortexes without him, he's going to be he probably won't be that pissed. I mean, it's a video game, it's whatever. But I don't want to be greedy and throw 40 of these bad boys into the defense and then have to throw 40 for him later on, because you don't get more acid that way. The best way to farm acid is you just put in one at a time. You wait 5 minutes, you do that 40 times, you collect all the acid drops, and then you're good while you run a acid food buff drop. That's one of the easier, better ways to farm acid, but we have a whole compound that farms acid and oil and fuel and a whole bunch of other crap, which is another separate video. But again, if you want to see this base in action, please scroll down, check the pinned YouTube comment, and I should have a link to an unlisted video that shows that, again, if I remember. But that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think of the base? Do you have a better base outline that doesn't rely on, like, gimmicks like chokeholds and funneling and all that other stuff? This works anywhere. You can plop this base down literally anywhere and it will work just fine. I recommend that you do not have tall walls so that the turrets can hit everything, because especially tall walls like this, if an enemy gets, like, right here in a blind spot, you have to manually clear them out. Well, this turret would be able to, like, aim downward, even though it doesn't look like it physically can. But, you know, just having tall walls is not beneficial, so that's the only thing I would do different, is have this in a different location. But I wanted them next to my other bases, so there we go. Anyway, with that said, thank you so much. Please leave a like. This is the literal best base ever. I swear, there is no way to beat this. The honeycombing is superior. The defense itself is superior. It's AFKable, automated. I'm a lazy gamer. I like to have the laziest ways possible to play games with the maximum efficiency. So there you go. And finally, on the right side of your screen, there is a video you should absolutely click. And if you don't click it, then you know what? fuel prices in your area are gonna just go up. Like, right now, they're probably 40 cents cheaper than what you're normally used to, and when you go out to buy fuel, if you don't click the video, it's gonna be like 40 cents more expensive, and you're like, man, I should have gassed up a couple days ago when it was cheaper. And if you don't drive, well, good for you, then you're immune to the curse. Click the video anyway, though. Mwah.